Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who take you for granted the hardest. Imagine giving years of your life, your time, your money, your energy, all to make someone else feel special, while your own happiness is treated like an afterthought. What would you do if you finally reached the breaking point? If one day you decided enough was enough? This is the story of Hannah Parker, the forgotten daughter who turned her pain into freedom and taught her entire family a lesson they would never forget. I held my glass of water a little too tight as Mom pushed a thick ivory envelope across the dining table. The Parker family crest was pressed in shiny gold on the front. Because of course, my older sister Natalie couldn't have a birthday invitation without some kind of dramatic wax seal. "Aren't they gorgeous?" Mom said proudly, her eyes sparkling as she watched Natalie hand out envelopes like she was royalty. The calligrapher told me it was the best design she worked on all year. Dad cleared his throat, puffing up his chest with pride. I locked down the Grandview Ballroom at the Uptown Country Club. Had to call in a favor with Tom Carter. But for my princess turning 30? Nothing less than perfect. Natalie squealed, tossing her perfect blonde curls over one shoulder. "I've already got 150 people confirmed, and that's before the invitations go out." Madison Wilson's party only had 120 people, and everyone said hers was the event of the year. "But mine," she smirked, "mine is going to put hers to shame." I took a sip of water, the ice cubes clinking against my teeth. 10 years of this. 10 years of watching Natalie's birthday turn into a holiday the whole city knew about, while mine passed with maybe a store-bought cake if I was lucky. Mom turned to me, her long French manicured nails pushing a thick manila folder across the table. On top of it sat a shiny platinum credit card. "We need you to handle everything again this year, Hannah. You're just so good with the details." She said it as if she were giving me some great honor. Not another year of unpaid, exhausting labor. I stared at the folder. I already knew what was inside. Magazine cutouts, Pinterest printouts, vendor business cards. The same folder I'd been given since I was 16. A folder that grew fatter and heavier every year. Natalie didn't even look up from her phone as she chimed in. "Oh, and make sure there's a champagne fountain like the one the Wilsons had, but bigger. And get the good champagne this time, not the cheap stuff." Dad tapped the card like it was some kind of blessing. "And put the deposits down with this. We'll reimburse you eventually." He chuckled like it was a joke we both enjoyed. My hands wrapped around the folder, trembling. But no one noticed. No one ever noticed. Memories hit me all at once. Me at 17, canceling my sleepover so I could address invitations for Natalie's 21st. Me at 21, missing my own dinner reservations because Natalie's DJ canceled last minute and someone had to find a replacement. Me at 24, watching $4,000 disappear from my account to cover the flower bill Dad swore he'd pay back next week. I'm still waiting for that one. And of course my own birthdays. Exactly 2 weeks after Natalie's. Always the same. "We're all partied out, let's just do something small." Small meant nothing. Small meant a distracted happy birthday text at 9 p.m. Small meant I didn't matter. "Hannah, did you hear me?" Mom waved her hand in front of my face. I said, "We need the deposits placed by Friday." "Yes," I said automatically. "I heard you." Later that night, I spread the contents of Natalie's folder across my tiny kitchen counter. The theme this year was diamond elegance. Last week it was glitz and glamour, but apparently that was too basic. The original budget? $4,000. By now, already over $6,000. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank account. $3,274. My entire savings. Every dollar carefully put away from my administrative assistant's salary. I had never once celebrated a birthday properly. Not once in 26 years. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Rachel. "Did they rope you into party planning again?" My fingers hovered over the keys, and for the first time in my life, something inside me shifted. Like tectonic plates finally breaking free after years of pressure. Not this time, I thought. I closed Natalie's folder, opened a new browser tab, typed, Florida Beach House Rentals. Another tab, flight prices to Clearwater. Another, swim with dolphins tours. The screen lit up with photos of pastel beach houses with wide porches and ocean views. Places where the sunrise could be mine alone. Places where no one would shove a folder in front of me. My phone rang. Natalie's face appeared, her professional headshot, which she forced all of us to use as her contact photo. I silenced it and turned the phone face down. A few minutes later, I clicked book now on a blue and white bungalow with 5-star reviews. 2 weeks in paradise. My 26th birthday would finally be mine. As I typed in my credit card information, a smile spread across my face. A smile that wasn't guilt, wasn't fear. It was freedom. The next day at work, my phone buzzed 12 times before noon. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was either Mom or Natalie. The buzzing was so constant that Janet from accounting leaned over the cubicle wall. "Girl, is your phone having a seizure?" My boss Mark walked past just then. "Family stuff again?" I nodded, flipping the phone over. 15 unread texts. Mom wanted to increase the head count to 175. Natalie changed her theme again. "Sorry, I'll silence it." But before I could, Mark put a hand on my shoulder. "Take 10 minutes if you need to. Your reports are always early anyway." I nodded and slipped into the break room. Against my better judgment, I answered when Mom's face flashed across the screen. "Hannah, I've been texting you all morning," she said briskly. "Call the caterer immediately. We're adding 25 more guests, and Natalie insists on those lobster puffs she had at the Johnsons' anniversary." "Mom, we already signed contracts. Adding 25 people will. Money isn't the issue, dear. This is Natalie's special day." The break room door swung open. Janet walked in, saw my expression, and quickly backed out. I lowered my voice. "The budget is already at 6,000. Who's paying for this?" "You can use that card we gave you," Mom replied smoothly. "Your father will settle everything afterward. Like last time." The words escaped before I could stop them. "Hannah Parker, I don't appreciate that tone." She huffed. "I'll swing by your office at lunch. I have fabric swatches for the table linens." And before I could argue, she hung up. I gripped the counter, breathing slowly through my nose. My bank account balance flashed in my mind again. The number that would not increase until payday. That night I pulled out old photo albums. Page after page of Natalie's elaborate celebrations. Sweet 16 with the rented ballroom. 21st with the live band. 25th with the weekend getaway for her and 20 friends. I opened my childhood journal. The entries were a painful pattern. April 12, 2015. My 16th birthday. Family went to Natalie's volleyball tournament instead. Mom said we'd celebrate next weekend. We didn't. April 12, 2016. Nobody remembered. Dad handed me a $20 bill when I mentioned it at dinner. April 12, 2017. My friend Rachel brought cupcakes to school. At least someone remembered. I slammed the journal shut and grabbed my phone. "Rachel," I texted. "Remember that Florida trip we talked about? I just booked it. For my birthday. I've had enough." Her reply came instantly. "Finally. It's about time. I'm in." For the first time in years, I smiled at the thought of my own birthday. The next morning, I walked into my parents' house like I had every year before. Mom had already spread Natalie's party binder across the dining table. Samples and swatches fanned out like an art project. Dad sat at the head of the table, glasses perched on his nose as he scrolled through spreadsheets on his tablet. And Natalie, perfect Natalie, was lounging on the couch in a silk robe, sipping an oat milk latte while she scrolled Instagram. "You're late," she muttered without looking up. "I had work," I said evenly, hanging my purse on the chair. Mom frowned, waving a fabric square in my face. "Look at this satin. Isn't it just divine?" I was thinking ivory tablecloths with diamond dust overlays. Dad chimed in. "And I confirmed the ice sculpture. They'll shape it like a crown. Symbolic, don't you think?" I forced a smile, sitting down. "Of course. Very symbolic." As they rattled on, I pulled out my planner. Inside it, taped to the back cover, was my flight itinerary. My real plan. My secret. I kept my face neutral as I pretended to jot down notes about hors d'oeuvres and balloon arches. In reality, I was writing a checklist. Heavy check mark confirmed dolphin tour. Heavy check mark pack sunscreen. Heavy check mark rent snorkeling gear. My heart raced with every hidden bullet point. For once, I wasn't their assistant. For once, I was planning for me. That afternoon, Natalie insisted we visit the venue. I drove, of course, because Natalie's car was too nice for downtown parking. She sat in the passenger seat, giving me orders like a queen in her carriage. "Don't forget to order the 12-tier cake." I want sparklers on top. And live violinists. Oh, and make sure the bartender knows my cocktail recipe by heart. I gripped the wheel tighter, nodding without a word. But inside I was laughing. Because none of this was going to matter. None of it. At the Grandview Ballroom, the manager gave us a tour of the chandelier-lit space. Natalie twirled in the center like it was her runway. Imagine, Hannah. The lights dim, the music swells, and then spotlight on me. Everyone watching. I nodded, biting back the words that wanted to escape. No one's going to be watching, Natalie. Not the way you think. Back at home, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. You did bring the car, didn't you? She asked sharply. Yes. Good. We need the deposits finalized by Friday. I don't want Natalie stressing over this. I looked at her, at the fine lines etched deep into her face. She wasn't worried about me. She never was. Mom, I said carefully, what about my birthday? It's 2 weeks after Natalie's, remember? Her expression didn't change. Oh, Hannah, you know we'll do something small. We always do. Small. Always small. I nodded slowly, pressing my lips together. Right. Something small. That night, I sat on my bed with my laptop glowing in the dark. My cursor hovered over the cancel reservation button on the venue's online portal. One click and the Grandview Ballroom would be gone. One click and the crown-shaped ice sculpture would melt into a puddle of wasted dreams. But no, that was too obvious. Too risky. Instead, I chose something quieter. Smarter. I scrolled through the vendor contracts Mom had shoved into Natalie's binder. Caterer, florist, DJ. Every single one required confirmation calls within 2 weeks of the event. If no one called, the bookings would be released. My lips curled into a smile. All I had to do was nothing. For once, silence would be my weapon. The following week was chaos in the Parker household. Mom barked orders, Dad signed checks, and Natalie floated above it all like a spoiled princess. And me? I nodded, scribbled in my planner, and pretended to handle everything. But when Natalie texted me, "Did you confirm the cake?" I typed back, "Yes, all set." When Mom asked, "Did you finalize the head count with the caterer?" I smiled. Already taken care of. When Dad grumbled about valet services, I reassured him, "Don't worry. It's booked." Every lie tasted sweeter than the last. At night, when everyone thought I was calling vendors, I was actually calling Rachel. "You won't believe this," I whispered, sprawled across my bed. "They think I'm setting up the whole event. I'm not doing a single thing." Rachel laughed so hard she nearly choked. "Hannah Parker, I am so proud of you. Finally putting yourself first." "Feels dangerous," I admitted. "But freeing. Dangerous is freeing. And when you're sitting on a beach drinking margaritas on your birthday, you won't regret a thing." I smiled into the darkness. For once I believed her. 1 week before Natalie's big day, tension hit a breaking point. Natalie stormed into my apartment unannounced, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Why hasn't the DJ called me yet? He should have checked my playlist by now. I blinked innocently. Weird. Maybe he's just busy. Her eyes narrowed. And the florist? I don't see any samples of the arrangements. I shrugged. "I'll follow up." She paced, her robe trailing dramatically behind her. "You'd better, Hannah. This party is my legacy. If anything goes wrong." I cut her off, my voice calm but sharp. "Relax. Nothing will go wrong." But inside, I was already picturing her face when everything did. The night before Natalie's birthday, I packed my suitcase. Bikinis, sundresses, sandals. I double-checked my flight information, slipped my passport into the front pocket of my bag, and zipped it shut. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed endlessly with texts. "Mom, table linens arrive at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Make sure you're there." "Dad, don't forget to tip the delivery guys." "Natalie, my lashes appointment ran late. Confirm the photographer again." I turned my phone off. The silence was bliss. The morning of Natalie's 30th birthday, I woke up not to chaos, but to sunlight streaming through my blinds. I stretched, yawned, and smiled, while Mom and Dad scrambled across town setting up tables that would never be delivered. While Natalie screamed into her phone about missing hairstylists, I was already on my way to the airport. At the gate, I ordered a caramel latte, sat by the window, and watched the plane's taxi. For the first time in my life, I wasn't dreading the day. By the time Natalie realized the cake wasn't coming, I was already flying over the clouds. By the time Mom realized the caterer had double booked, I was sipping complimentary ginger ale at 30,000 feet. By the time Dad realized no DJ, no florist, no photographer were ever confirmed, I was stepping onto warm Florida sand, breathing in the salty air of freedom. Rachel arrived later that evening, suitcase in hand, grin wide as the ocean behind her. "To birthdays," she said, raising a plastic cup filled with cheap champagne we bought from the corner store. "To birthdays," I echoed, clinking my cup against hers. We sipped, barefoot on the porch of our rented beach house, watching the sun sink into the horizon. Somewhere back home, Natalie's voice was probably echoing through the empty ballroom, furious and betrayed. But here, on this porch with the waves crashing and my best friend by my side, for the first time ever my birthday finally felt like mine. When I came back from Florida, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No cheerful welcome back. No warm hug from Mom. No sarcastic jab from Natalie. Just silence, thick and suffocating, like the air right before a thunderstorm. I wheeled my suitcase into the foyer, the wheels clicking against the hardwood. My father appeared in the hallway, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You," he said flatly. "Me," I answered calm. His eyes narrowed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I tilted my head. "I went on vacation. That's all." His voice rose, echoing through the house. "Vacation? Your sister's 30th birthday was ruined. The caterer never showed up. The florist canceled. The DJ booked another event. Guests were standing around with nothing but tap water and folding chairs." I shrugged lightly, setting my suitcase by the stairs. "Sounds unfortunate." "Unfortunate." His face flushed red. "Natalie cried for hours. Your mother nearly had a breakdown. People left calling it the disaster of the year." I didn't flinch. "Maybe you should have hired an actual event planner instead of me." By the time Mom stormed into the room, her mascara was smudged and her voice sharp. "How could you, Hannah? Your sister trusted you. We trusted you." That one made me laugh. A dry, humorless sound. "Trusted me? Or used me?" Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair." "No," I said softly, steady. "What's not fair is you making me pay for a party I wasn't invited to. What's not fair is acting like my birthday doesn't exist. What's not fair is treating me like a servant, then being shocked when I stopped serving." The room went dead quiet. Natalie entered last, still in her silk robe, though this one was navy instead of white. Her eyes were puffy, her lips pursed. "You humiliated me," she said, voice low and trembling. "Do you know what people are saying? That I'm pathetic. That I couldn't even organize my own event. Everyone's whispering about me." "Correction," I said. "They're whispering about you, not me." Her eyes flashed. "You're jealous. You've always been jealous. That's what this is about, isn't it?" I almost laughed again, but I didn't. Instead, I let my words land like a blade. "No, Natalie. I'm not jealous. I'm free." And that's when I realized sometimes the only way to win against people who thrive on control is to stop playing their game entirely. For days afterward, the house was a war zone. Dad stomped around muttering about reputation. Mom dropped passive-aggressive comments like landmines. Natalie alternated between crying fits and icy silence. But me? I was calm. I carried myself differently now. Taller. Sharper. I cooked meals for myself and left them on the counter without offering a bite to anyone else. I kept my planner open on the coffee table, not with their lists but with mine, job applications, travel plans, little reminders for my life. And I didn't apologize. Not once. One evening, I came home to find Natalie waiting in the kitchen, arms folded. "I talked to Mom and Dad," she said coldly. "We've decided you need to pay us back." I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For the deposits. For the embarrassment. For all the money we wasted because of you." I leaned against the counter, calm as ever. "Funny. Weren't those all in your name? With your credit cards?" Her face faltered. "Yes, but..." "Then it's your problem." I picked up an apple from the bowl and took a slow bite. "Not mine." She clenched her fists. "You're not part of this family anymore." I smiled. "Finally. Thank you." Word spread quickly. Relatives called furious. An aunt left me a voicemail saying I'd shamed the Parker name. A cousin sent me a long text about family loyalty. I didn't reply to any of them, because for the first time I saw it clearly. The Parker name had never done me any favors. It was a chain, not a crown, and I was done dragging it behind me. But here's the twist. The more they raged, the calmer I became. When Mom yelled that Natalie's friends would never look at her the same way, I said, "Not my problem." When Dad fumed about losing face at the country club, I said, "Not my problem." When Natalie sobbed that her social life was ruined, I said, "Not my problem." It drove them insane, because for the first time in my life I wasn't bending. A week later, I found a note slipped under my bedroom door. Natalie's handwriting. "Hannah, if you ever cared about this family, you'll fix this. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon. No parents. Just us." I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity won. The next day, I walked into the cafe to find Natalie already seated, sunglasses perched on her head like armor. She didn't waste time. "I need you to call the vendors," she said bluntly. "Reschedule everything. We'll do a second party. A redemption party." I stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Yes. We can salvage this. But I can't do it without you." For a second, I almost laughed in her face. But then I realized she truly believed I'd come crawling back. That I needed to. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "Natalie, I don't think you understand. I'm done. I'm not your assistant. I'm not your scapegoat. And I'm not your backup plan." Her lips parted, shock flashing across her face. "You can't just walk away." I smiled. "Watch me." And I stood up, leaving her sitting there with her oat milk latte and her crumbling delusion. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, just turning your back and walking away. Back at home, I started packing. Clothes, books, the essentials. Every folded shirt into my suitcase felt like another piece of my life being reclaimed. Mom walked in mid-pack, her eyes widening. "What are you doing?" "Moving out," I said simply. "You can't." "Yes, I can." She reached for the suitcase handle. "You'll regret this. Family is everything." I pulled it back, looking her square in the eye. "If family is everything, why wasn't I ever enough?" She froze. No words. No excuses. I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound loud and final. When I carried it down the stairs, Dad stood at the bottom, arms crossed again. "If you walk out that door, don't come back." I met his gaze. "That's the idea." A week later, I found a note slipped under my bedroom door. Natalie's handwriting. "Hannah, if you ever cared about this family, you'll fix this. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon. No parents. Just us." I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity won. The next day, I walked into the cafe to find Natalie already seated, sunglasses perched on her head like armor. She didn't waste time. "I need you to call the vendors," she said bluntly. "Reschedule everything. We'll do a second party. A redemption party." I stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Yes. We can salvage this. But I can't do it without you." For a second, I almost laughed in her face. But then I realized she truly believed I'd come crawling back. That I needed to. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "Natalie, I don't think you understand. I'm done. I'm not your assistant. I'm not your scapegoat. And I'm not your backup plan." Her lips parted, shock flashing across her face. "You can't just walk away." I smiled. "Watch me." And I stood up, leaving her sitting there with her oat milk latte and her crumbling delusion. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, just turning your back and walking away. Back at home, I started packing. Clothes, books, the essentials. Every folded shirt into my suitcase felt like another piece of my life being reclaimed. Mom walked in mid-pack, her eyes widening. "What are you doing?" "Moving out," I said simply. "You can't." "Yes, I can." She reached for the suitcase handle. "You'll regret this. Family is everything." I pulled it back, looking her square in the eye. "If family is everything, why wasn't I ever enough?" She froze. No words. No excuses. I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound loud and final. When I carried it down the stairs, Dad stood at the bottom, arms crossed again. "If you walk out that door, don't come back." I met his gaze. "That's the idea." Natalie appeared behind him, eyes wide, lips trembling. For the first time, she looked small. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "No," I said, stepping past them. "I won't." And with that, I walked out. The night I left, the air felt different. lighter somehow. For the first time in years, I wasn't tiptoeing around slammed doors and passive-aggressive sighs. I wasn't planning someone else's schedule, making lists I'd never get thanked for, or bracing myself for criticism no matter how hard I tried. I was just me, standing in the glow of a streetlight, suitcase in hand, breathing air that belonged only to me. I rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment across town. It wasn't fancy. Peeling paint on the walls, a squeaky faucet, windows that rattled when trucks passed, but it was mine. Every mug in the cupboard, every blanket on the bed, every light switched on or off mine. The silence, once suffocating at home, was now comforting. I could hear myself think, and what I thought was simple: I'm never going back. Meanwhile, the calls started. Mom first. Tearful voicemails about how I'd broken the family. Then Dad, his voice sharp and clipped, demanding I return. Then Natalie, who didn't bother with politeness. You think you're better than us now? You've ruined everything. Do you even care what people are saying about me? I didn't reply. For weeks I didn't reply. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It's silence. Because silence makes them hear their own voices, maybe for the first time. I focused on myself. I picked up extra shifts at work, saving for the future. I joined a ceramics class, something I'd always wanted to try. I made new friends, people who didn't know me as the other Parker daughter, just Hannah, just me. And slowly the tension in my chest loosened. But across town, in that pristine white house I used to call home, things were unraveling. Word got around about Natalie's ruined party. My pottery started selling at local markets. I even booked a solo trip to Europe, something I dreamed of for years but never dared to do. The more I built, the smaller they seemed in the rearview mirror. Then came Christmas. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invited. No call, no card, not even a half-hearted guilt trip. Just silence. And I'll admit, it stung. But then I realized silence was what I'd asked for. Silence was freedom. And I spent Christmas Eve drinking cocoa on my couch, watching old movies, laughing out loud just because I could. But here's the funny thing about silence. Eventually, they broke it. In February, Mom called again. This time her voice wasn't angry, it was small. Hannah, she said softly, we miss you. Can you come home for dinner? Just to talk. I stared at the phone, stunned. But then I remembered all the dinners where I wasn't spoken to, all the birthdays I didn't get, all the ways I was invisible until they needed something. So I said, no, and I hung up. You teach people how to treat you. And sometimes the only lesson they'll ever learn is when you walk away for good. The Parker family didn't collapse overnight. It was slower than that. Natalie's career stalled little by little. Dad's perfect image cracked, one rumor at a time. Mom's endless hosting dried up when no one wanted to attend her parties anymore. They still had each other, of course. But without me to absorb the blows, without me to patch the holes, they had to face themselves. And they didn't like what they saw. As for me, I stopped checking their social media. I stopped answering their calls. And I stopped letting their voices echo in my head, because I finally understood something. I hadn't ruined Natalie's party. I'd saved myself. The last time I saw them was almost a year later. I was walking out of a cafe downtown, arms full of grocery bags, when I spotted them across the street.